Welcome back. Here we are once again with the Todd Sylvester Inspires Belief Cast. And once again, have an amazing guest on today, Paul Moore, who's going to join us today. Good day to you.
Good day to you.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I do need to thank once again our sponsor, Veracity Networks, and my good friend Drew Peterson for making that possible. They're an amazing company. Please check out their website and see that you'll know quickly what an amazing company they are. Again, thanks for all your support out there. We are trending, and man, we're blowing up, and good things are happening, and a lot of people are listening to these and sharing them. So I want to thank all of you. We wouldn't be where we're at had it not been for all the efforts of you, all the listeners. So thank you so much. We have Paul Moore today. He grew up in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
A little west of there, but you
pretty
wouldn't know where. Yeah,
you wouldn't know. Yeah.
Yep.
I've actually never been to Pennsylvania.
No.
I'd love to go there one day. You've had a passion for branding, graphic design, inventing, building businesses, which we'll get into. You have a website called drivendeep.com, and there's a reason why you even formed that.
Correct.
Obviously, off the air, we talked a little bit about how some of the struggles you had growing up. You had a stutter, and then you also were overweight. And then we're going to get into how when you lost the weight, how that kind of just, not only it was kind of a new look and a new feel for you, but almost a new mindset and a new way of giving back to this world. Correct?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly
so I'm excited for our listeners to hear this. So we're very blessed to have Paul Moore today. So give us a little background on you, and, tell us about growing up in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and a little bit about your family.
For sure. So from Pennsylvania, love it. It's just a wonderful place, a totally different kind of beauty from here in Utah.
Right.
When I got here, everyone's like, just look at the mountains and you'll know where to go.
Right.
Directions. And I'm like, they're everywhere.
Yeah. They're on all sides.
Exactly,
how do I do that?
Exactly. Yeah. Home is very green. I grew up with a wonderful family, parents who loved me. I have two sisters, no cousins, zero, just dad's an only child. And mom has one brother. And I would say I was blessed with parents who knew how to guide me, who knew how to lead me. I was, from an early age, I was that kid who, when someone came to fix something in the house, my mom would be like, "Can he watch you? Do what you're doing." I was the kid who was drawing from like a tiny little kid, and I was always inventing, always trying to, create something. And so my parents always asked me the right questions that prevented me from maybe going down, roads that might not be beneficial, but they also knew when to let me fly as well.
Wow, that's awesome. So, at a young age, you mentioned off the air you had a stutter that was that something you had early on, or was this later, or when did that start?
So I had that. It was probably started when I was about 10 or 11. Early on, I had what was called petit mal seizures, where I would just kind of blank out, and I would just be gone for a little bit and then come back. And then it kind of transitioned from that to stuttering. I don't know entirely how, but from about 11 or so on, I had just a stutter that I feared speaking in any public setting, church, kind of classroom type environment things. I just feared talking, and had friends, had people in my life, I would call my friends, but at times, teenagers and people are younger, they can be mean.
Yeah. So you got teased about it?
Kind of a thing. Yeah. And so it was one of those trials that until I was about 19, it's when I served a two-year mission for my church. That's what got me to overcome that.
Right.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Yeah. I want to get into that for sure. Yeah. But I also want to talk because, I love stories of people overcoming stuff. That's why you're on, because, you've overcome some things that are pretty difficult to deal with. So here you are getting teased as a kid.
Right.
What's the story you told yourself when you're being teased? And that had to have been a difficult time.
It is. And it definitely was. I feel if I could give a piece of advice to myself back then, it would just be to stay in the moment, take life one day at a time. I will definitely say there was many hard nights crying, with my mom or my dad, and not knowing how to cope with it. And I think sometimes we don't know how to cope with stuff, but we have to reach out to other people and have them help.
Yeah.
And I think that's...
How did you cope? I mean, did you isolate? Did you stay away from people? What did you do to...
I just stuck with the people that I knew really loved me.
Right.
And stuck with the people that knew my weaknesses and didn't care and just loved me for me. Right. We all have weaknesses. We all have things that that are imperfect about us.
Right.
But there's people that are in our lives that, regardless of that, love us no matter what.
Right.
And so I think it was sticking with them, sticking with people who really cared. And stuttering is a thing that if you feel confident, if you feel kind of secure in a certain environment, you do better with it.
Right. Yeah.
And so we can talk about it later, but that's one of the things that helped me overcome it, is doing things that was uncomfortable enough to where I got comfortable with it.
Yeah. Okay. So I love that, because I really believe that, again, it comes back to that kind of the mindset, right? When you're self-conscious about it and you're worrying about it, it's probably 10 times worse, because then when you do actually speak, it's there and it's like exaggerated, correct?
Self-fulfilled prophecy.
Yeah.
Our minds have the ability of looking, or not looking in the future, but predicting or thinking about what it could be like.
Right.
And so when you go over and over and over that, and you worry, and then when you get there, and it happens, it's just hard.
Yeah, I call that future tripping.
Right, exactly.
You're worried about that. And so,
exactly.
So you're going through this, and it started at a young age, and it went all through school, it sounds like. Elementary, junior high, high school, correct?
Yep.
So, and did you have a close group of friends that had eventually just accepted you for that and didn't tease you about it? Or did you still even, because a lot of times, even like your group of friends who you say they're your friends will still give you a hard time about it.
Right. So growing up, my mom is a teacher, and she actually taught us at home. So for quite a bit of that. So my core was through church and through sports.
Okay.
And so I didn't have as much of the teasing. So I think in a way, two things happened there. One, I might not have experienced as many trials to overcome it, but I think at the same time it did shield me from merciless teasing, being taught at home. But I had good friends at church. There were some that were, still teased, but there was that core that still was there with me on that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that had to have been helpful, knowing that you've got that core to kind of lean on and during those tough times.
I'm very close with my family. Like being that we have I have no cousins, one uncle.
Really?
It's like you buy your basic table at Walmart, and it can house our entire family gathering, for Christmas.
Okay.
So it's just a small group.
Right.
And I talk to them often, and so they've just always been there.
So how long did you live out in Pennsylvania?
I was there till about 18, served 2-year mission. Didn't go very far. Went to the state right next door, New Jersey, and then went to school in Virginia. I went to school at Southern Virginia University, and then I came here shortly thereafter.
After that.
Yeah, I've been here about 7-8 years.
So you mentioned earlier that, when you're on your mission, that was a way for you to really work hard and kind of overcome this fear around the stutter and the stuttering. And then what did you do? What did you actively do on your mission to make sure to kind of overcome that? What did you do?
It's not, I would say it's not so much what I did, but what life did to me, or what life presented for me.
Gotcha.
And I guess I shouldn't take credit. I don't know, it was me though as well. It's like life places stuff in front of you, and you have to jump through these hoops.
You either do it or you don't.
Either you do or you don't.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those where, as a full-time missionary, you're knocking on doors, sharing message of our Savior, right? And there's moments where I stuttered so bad that I couldn't get one word out, and they just slammed the door in my face.
Right.
And then we go to the next one, and I do it all over again. Nothing came out. I was stuttering so bad, they probably thought, I was like, who is this kid, right? Tag, a shirt, and he can't even speak. And then, but just kept over and over doing that day in, day out. I spoke probably 50 times, gave kind of talk type of speech type of things. And so it was one of those where it got me to the point where I was comfortable in that space.
Wow.
And then later on, I taught I taught seminary for the LDS Church, or the Church of Jesus Christ.
This was after?
Saints. Yeah. Yep. This was after. And
so
then,
real quick,
yeah,
while you're on your mission, you're knocking on these
Mhm.
doors, and
Right.
I never served a mission.
Right.
I've had friends who had.
Mhm.
I know how scary that would be to knock on a door and share something that these people, one, you're probably thinking they don't want to hear it, but then you're also struggling with, can I even say anything without stuttering kind of thing.
Right.
But what I love about what you said is you kept at it. You didn't give up. It would have been easy for you, like, I'm not doing this.
Right.
But you kept going, which I thought, that's pretty remarkable.
I find, kind of looking back on my life, failure is the pathway to success.
Right.
And we all fail. But I think often we lump ourselves in with that failure, and we say, I'm a failure.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to separate that and say, I had a moment where I failed, but I am not a failure.
I like that.
I keep going. I keep trying, and taking life in bite-sized moments, just taking it one day at a time, even 1 hour at a time. Some mornings, I don't know if you've been there, where it's like, oh, that was not a productive morning.
Right.
But instead of just living in that world where it's, now it's not a productive day.
The day's shot.
Exactly. I say, I am changing now. This next hour is going to be the best I've ever lived.
Well, I love that.
And so it's just breaking it down.
Beautiful.
From sometimes it's even into minutes. It kind of depends on our mindset, where we're at, where we have to break it down in a way that we can overcome that mental hurdle.
I love it. Very powerful. You mentioned as well that kind of life presents these things in front of us. I have a philosophy that I share with my clients, that life happens for us.
Right.
Think about the blessings that have come in your life, and we haven't even got there yet. I already just kind of know this. We didn't even talk about this.
Yeah.
But because you overcame this, think of the blessings that have come from that, because you, like you said, on every hour, if you had to reinvent yourself, you did it, and how, if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't be, where you are today.
I agree. I would say I am who I am today because of my trials. And there are keystone trials in my life that have transformed who I am.
Wow.
One of the keystone trials is stuttering. Weight loss is another. My journey to Utah, I don't think I shared this with you, but my journey to Utah, I didn't make it. A semi hit my car in Iowa, totaled it. I was stranded 1,000 miles from anyone, that I really knew, and had to overcome all that. And so I think in our lives, there are keystone trials that transform us.
Yeah.
Moments in time, or it can be a period of time, but this trial that's there, that as we overcome it, it really defines at the core level of who it really defines who we are. Yeah. At that base.
What
level.
I love now is you're a motivational speaker.
Exactly.
A guy who stuttered his whole life, pretty much, now is a motivational speaker who doesn't do that anymore, who's confident in what he says. I mean, again, it probably makes you 100 times better motivational speaker because of what you went through with the stuttering.
Our weaknesses are opportunities for strengths. We just have to face them.
Love it. Very love it. So you get home from your mission. At this point, and I don't know where you're at, but I mean, are you overweight at this point? Because I know that. When did that all happen, and what was going on there?
Yeah, so most of my life, growing up, probably I was on the swim team, when I was really young. But then when I stopped that, I think probably when I hit, probably like 11 or 12, that's kind of when it really started. And at my peak, I was 270 pounds.
Wow. I know I was looking at some of the pictures on your website, and the difference was like, wow. It's when you see them side to side, you're like, wow, that was you.
Right. It's looking back on it now. It's interesting looking back in the past. I think there's two things. One, it helps us with the future. It helps us to live a better future reflecting on the past. But I also think, like, looking back, I'm like, I have to think about some of these things sometimes. I think life has a mechanism that when stuff that's really bad that has happened to us has happened, we tend to forget about it to a degree where to the degree that it doesn't harm us anymore.
Right.
And I think that's a beautiful thing that's built into kind of who we are, that even if we've had a huge trial in our life, let's say someone passes away,
right,
6 months to a year later, we're at our baseline of happiness.
Yeah.
We can be,
Right.
And so, personally, it was up and down. It was one of those, I don't want to admit this, but like I have bought, early on in high school and college, I bought so many as seen on TV type of exercise things,
Yeah.
It's just like, I was a kid who was just lost, and my whole family has struggled with this, and now both my sisters have made huge transformations as well, and
That's
awesome. It's one of those where you don't know what you don't know, and now that I'm in marketing, I know exactly what those infomercials were doing to me,
Yeah.
and it's just one of those where life is so simple. There's simple answers for what we think is so complex, but it's simple.
Right.
I found that my journey to losing that weight, it really wasn't just about the weight. It was about living a balanced life. It was about feeding my soul the correct way, knowing what it felt like to be hungry in 5 slightly different ways. And we'll talk about that later, but it's one of those where it's hard to really change when you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And I lost a ton of my mission just because I was moving. I was moving every day. But then when I got home, I went right back into those same habits. And it's knowing how to break those habits, those bad habit loops.
Sure. Wow. So you stuttered, you were overweight. I mean, what a challenge for any kid. I mean, that's a tough thing to go through. So you get to that point where you put all the weight back on when you get home.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the turning point when you finally decided? Now at this point, are you over the stuttering part now after you got home?
So interesting. So I did take a medication for it for quite a while.
Okay.
And then once I got off my parents' insurance, it was interesting. It was really expensive and I wasn't able to afford it. And this was just at the moment when I was trying to be a full-time seminary teacher.
Okay.
For the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it was this moment where I had one class where someone was going to watch me, observe me. And I didn't have that comfort anymore. I didn't have that, whatever type of effect mentally that I thought that little pill had to help. It did, I think, but now looking back, I think it might have been more mental than anything.
Right.
That whole summer, I was a counselor for this youth camp, and so the whole summer, I had a couple moments where it was rough, where this stutter came back. I wasn't able to control it the way that I used to. And so, but then as the summer went on, it got better. And then this moment that I'd been preparing for 5 years to try and be this teacher. And I'm like, I'm here. Looking back over that summer, I did the whole summer. I had a couple hiccups, but the whole summer was me.
Wow.
I had no help at that point. And so ever since then, it's just been me. I haven't had, and now I speak at places where there's, hundreds of people, and
you'd never know.
You'd
never know.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So what was the point where you finally said, like, I've got to change the way I'm eating? Because I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to put words or assume here, but that had to have been a tough time in feeling maybe down about yourself, being overweight.
Right.
Can you describe that?
Yeah. So it really comes in waves, where you feel bad about yourself, or if something happens and then you eat more. Soda was like my thing. I haven't had a drink of soda for about 6 years now. Wow. And so it doesn't.
Yeah, I saw you drink water via water.
Via water, yes, on my website, yeah, instead of water via soda. It's I actually drink the actual stuff.
Right.
And so it's one of those where now that I don't drink soda, carrots now are sweeter. Fruit that didn't have any, or vegetables that didn't have any sweetness to it now do.
Right.
A little bit of sugar now perks me up just as much as a whole glass of soda would.
Right.
It's getting your body off of those addictions, and all of us have them. It's what kind of addiction do we have, whether it's on our cell phone or soda or whatever. But I would say it's tough. It's tough being in that space. And I have friends, and I've family who have been, who have been in that space. And I just feel like people come into your life, or there's certain moments that happen where there's a God above who knows the pain, or there's family who recognize, and someone comes in and helps you in those moments.
Right.
It's just tough, and it's just weathering those storms. And I would say the moment where I changed, or that really was I guess, kind of going back to what I said earlier, that keystone moment.
Yeah.
I was a counselor at this church camp, and I was talking to the wife of the director, and I was mentioning, I didn't know her that well, but she just flat out told me, someone I didn't know that well, but basically just flat out told me, you need to start taking better care of yourself. I was telling her some other counselor that I had a crush on, right? Yeah. And then she just was like, you need to take better care of yourself. And I think it was, it was harsh at the time. I wouldn't recommend it for everyone. I think with my personality, it did what it needed to do.
Well, sometimes we need to hear the truth instead of sugarcoating it.
Right.
No pun intended there, but seriously, like, hey, I'm just going to shoot it to you straight. And I think those are actually our best friends who will actually tell us the straight up truth.
Right.
And she was like, you need to take better care. So you hear this though, and it probably stings.
For sure.
Right.
It's like a Band-Aid just ripped right off, and it just hurt.
So was that when you go, you know what? I need to make a change?
It was slow. And anyone who's wanting to lose weight, I would recommend doing it slow. And the reason why I say that is because habits take time to develop. Right. And one word I just don't like is diet, because subconsciously we're telling ourselves we're gonna do this for a time, and then we're gonna stop. Yep. My philosophy is create lifestyle changes. Gotcha. Things that you start, whether it be slow is good. Yeah. Because as you do something slowly but consistently, over time you get used to it. You slowly, it becomes a more part of who you are, versus you just kind of, okay, I got to lose 50 pounds by the summer, and you just, turn your life upside down. And it's so unsustainable that once you've struggled through that, then you're for sure going to quit and then go back to what you used to do. Right. So for me, that summer, it wasn't like, okay, I'm on a strict regiment of greens and I'm going to exercise 2 hours a day, right? I'm just going to change everything. No. It was, instead of eating all the deep fried stuff for lunch, I'm going to have salad with a bunch of ranch on it. But at least it was salad and it wasn't deep fried stuff, And then when I came to Utah, I found some good friends. I was blessed to have that. Right. That was huge for me as well. Some core friends that love doing things outside. Okay. We played Frisbee. We went on hikes. Frisbee was rough for a while, when my whole life I only run when something's chasing me, Now I'm running for quote unquote, like, for fun. You're like, this isn't fun. My heart's about to explode, But over time, I learned that I felt so much better after I exercised. I felt better because of the exercise, because I was with people. And it's, I could only run for, 100 feet and then 100 yards. And it happened to be in that group. There was someone I thought was a girl that was interesting, that I want to get to know more. And she liked to run. I'm like, for the first time in my life, I'm like, maybe I'll give this running thing a try, you know?
Yeah.
And we're still friends, but it's one of those where I started out, it's a quarter mile and then a half a mile. And then over 6 months, a mile, and then a year, 2 miles, 3 miles. And then I did my first marathon about a couple years ago, and I'm going to do my second one this year.
Right on.
So it's just,
Congratulations.
thank you. It's little changes over time lead to big results.
Right. And I think that's great advice too, because I think it allows you to not to feel overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And it probably still felt overwhelming at times, but taking it slow. Okay, I'm going to just do baby steps here. I'm not going to lose all this weight next week.
Exactly.
I'm going to just, like you said, I'm going to make lifestyle changes. And I think that's great advice for all of us in any area of our life.
And it's not being hard on ourselves as well.
Yeah.
I think often we are our biggest critic.
For sure.
Critic most times. And whenever we fail, it's just like, I can't do this. You know, it's just, I'm done. I'm awful. No, you are an amazing individual with talents and gifts specific to you that you can bless the world in ways that no one else can.
Right.
We all have trials. They are what make us who we are. They are, to kind of use an analogy, it's kind of like weightlifting. Trials are the weights we must lift to gain the strength. You know,
it's a good way of looking at it.
You know, and we have to do it daily. It's not something you can just weight lift and just handle a huge trial on the weekend, right? You have to do it consistently. It's through consistency, but it's just not being hard on yourself. Recognizing I had a bad day, but I'm going to do better tomorrow. Or also thinking about today, I'm just going to make sure I get 1 or 2 key things done. If the rest doesn't go that well, I've still got those 1 or 2 key things. Yeah. And taking those small victories, those small wins, and focusing on those. We have a tendency in this world to focus on the negative and not on the positive. Mm-hmm. Negative is kind of downstream, kind of floating downstream. Sure. Positive is swimming upstream. Yeah. It's harder to be positive, but in my mind, being positive is a emotional muscle that we must exercise every day. Happiness is an emotional muscle that we must exercise every day. And overcoming trials, same thing. It's just all these different muscle groups of our emotional body that we have to keep exercising every day.
I love that. Great. How often do you run now? Is it like a daily thing?
No,
is it a weekly thing?
I do 2-3 times a week.
Yeah.
I also try and probably about 6 or 7 years ago, I discovered yoga, and I discovered hot yoga, 105 degree. Like, I will not go back now. Really? I love it. It helps balance my body, and it's one of those where, and now this year I'm starting to weight lift. I've never really been that. All my roommates have been like the weightlifters. All of my friends have been those weightlifters, and I've been kind of the runner yoga guy. But I found that weightlifting helps me run better, helps me do yoga better. And so I try and do all of these throughout the week, maybe once to twice a week kind of a thing. And cool. I also don't want to set myself up with unrealistic expectations. So
again, taking it slow and just,
learning to love it.
Yeah. That's great. Very cool. Well, so now because of this and overcoming some of these trials that you've mentioned, this has led you to doing what you're doing today, and you're doing some amazing things. I know, I didn't say this in your intro, but you've also worked as a designer and marketer, creating products for the NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL, NHL, and Premier League, as well as many Utah brands.
Right.
Is that something that came later as well, or is this something you're doing now? And then I also want to get into your website and kind of the philosophy behind that.
For sure.
And what you're doing now.
For sure. So yeah, I would say that was one of those big moments of my life as well, getting into that job. I was at a spot where I had just left a sales job, and I had gotten pushed out because of some of my beliefs.
Right.
And that was tough going through that.
Sure.
And my life was not comfortable or happy because of kind of who I was. But I left that and was pushed out of that spot, and I just reached out on social media, and one of my mentors, his name's Clyde, phenomenal man.
Right.
He reached out to me and was like, I've got this there's this position of this small startup that they need someone to do their social media, do some graphic design for them. And yeah, that's kind of how that started. And from that point on, things really changed career-wise for me.
Right.
My ability, the things I learned in that company gave me the skills to do what I'm now doing.
Okay.
To create, and we'll talk about it, but I'm building this planner that I'm calling it My Happiness Planner. I call it My Happiness Planner because when people speak it, they take ownership of it.
Right.
And so I wouldn't have known how to do most of the things I'm doing right now, how to create some of the stuff without that kind of key moment in my life, that job where it was pretty cool stuff. It was fun stuff where our main product was this polyester wristband, and I worked with I worked with the NBA, the NHL, MLB, and it was just, I created, whole kind of themes of different designs across the entire league, and I don't even know. I was kind of like a one-man band, I was doing everything. I was doing the website images. I was doing the product creation. Obviously there was my boss but within the marketing and design aspect, but that really taught me how to work. And it wasn't great pay. It was definitely a struggle. It was a struggle, but it was worth it for the experiences.
For the experience you learned, yeah. Wow. That's really cool. And I know, because of, again, this led to what you're doing now. You have a website called drivendeep.com. Let's talk about what that is, the philosophy behind it, and why you put this together.
Right. So drivendeep.com, that... what it is it's a place where people can learn about life balance. It's a place where people can learn how to be happy. My philosophy and my motto or my mission is to help people become happier, healthier, and self-reliant. It's to help people build happiness. And happiness comes through life balance. So life balance comes in there's 5 areas to it. It's what I call the 5 dimensions of happiness.
Okay.
Spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social. And it's knowing what it feels like to be hungry in 5 slightly different ways.
Yeah, I like that.
We know what physical hunger is, but there's these other hungers where if we really pay attention to how the body works and to what it's asking us, we'll know what those feel like. And I was telling this to some friends yesterday or a couple days ago. It's honestly my belief that any negative feeling we experience is the body asking us to be fed in some way. If we feel sad, if we feel depressed, if we feel stressed, if we're anxious, it's our body asking us to do something to feed it in some way. There's nothing wrong with us. Would you ever say, morning time, breakfast rolling around, you're hungry, you're like, oh, I am a horrible person because I'm hungry this morning. No, we wouldn't do that. It's part of our life. It's part of that daily grind of feeding ourselves with, and having water and getting good food in our bodies to nourish us and keep us strong. There are many studies on where stress is our body's response. It's asking us to reach out to someone. Anxiety, depression. This is our body asking for
connection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Social engagement. And so that's kind of at a high level of what it is. And it's also a place where I kind of put together all of my loves, all the things I really enjoy doing, exercising and sharing that with people, public speaking. I also love graphic design. So if you go on my Instagram and Facebook, you'll see all these different designs. Yesterday was Lion King. I did a real fun design on that, and I'll do different motivational quotes. Everyone from Edgar Allan Poe to Aristotle to Winnie the Pooh kind of thing, right? I love truth, and I love finding it, and I love sharing it. And those different places of where those truths come from really resonate with different people. And so I love presenting in a way that's, we see a quote and it's from, some famous author 200 years ago, you're like, oh, that's powerful. But then if you see something that's more modern, more fresh, I really like connecting with the younger generation and with just, so I like helping people see things and visualize things and seeing a truth that they can really digest. Marketing is such that if we see something visual that really catches our eye, we'll stop and then we'll read. And so that's kind of what I do. I love creating stuff that really catches someone's eye, and then they stop, read that little one-liner, and then from there they'll read more. And so it's just a way that I can share truths with people.
Very cool. So your loves are, you love to run, you're motivational speaking, obviously you love helping people.
Correct.
I mean, how has that played a part in your happiness is when you're helping other people?
I found that I love helping people one-on-one. I really do enjoy. I mean, I definitely enjoy helping when I'm teaching, like speaking in front of a large group. But the real joy for me comes with helping people one-on-one, because you get to know someone, you get to help them through something, you get to have empathy with someone or sympathy, or it's just that deeper connection.
Sure. And
it's part of that life balance for me. Talking to people, helping people. I'm helping them, but it's also helping me. It's helping feed my soul.
Right.
It's helping. Every day I try and talk to someone, whether it be, calling my dad, calling my mom, or talking to a friend, reaching. I've got on my one wall in my room, I've got this checklist of friends I want to keep in contact with, and I've broken it down to where I try and catch up with them once every couple of months.
Right.
I don't have, memory wise, as like a creative, I kind of go all over the place sometimes, but it's when I know my weaknesses, and so I write it all down, and so I can keep tabs with some of these people, because friendships, that I've made in my life, I put a lot of effort into them, and I just don't want to throw those away just passively not doing anything. So, I think as humans, we are built for connection. We are built to have love, to give love. And so I think helping people through this means is something that gives me a lot of fulfillment in life.
Very cool. Very cool. You guys need to check out his website, drivendeep.com. I've checked it out. It's beautifully done.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how clean and simple it is.
Thank you.
I love websites that are just, doesn't have words everywhere and you feel lost.
Right.
It doesn't feel that way with yours. And I really, you've done an amazing job there. So what does a day look like for you? What does a day look like for, how do you, I guess, keep that level of balance and that happiness level that you keep talking about? What does a day look like for you, and what do you do that?
So part of my routine, I have my core morning routine, just that thing that really gets me going.
Mm-hmm.
And as we do small wins, it starts to snowball. And so I've made one of the things I do every day is make my bed.
Right.
I love making my bed. I started that 4 years ago, and I haven't missed a day.
Yeah.
And so it's little things like that where it's like making your bed, and then I'll take I take about 15 minutes of reading my scriptures, and then I'll take 15 minutes of reading some good book that I'm studying at the moment. I just finished the Power of Habit. I'm starting the Happiness Advantage with Sean Acker.
Yeah.
Wonderful book. And I'm still in prototype phase with this, but I'm coming out with this happiness planner soon. But I use it every day. So my morning routine is I set my 5 goals, or 5 tasks, I should say.
Right.
I say tasks because goals sometimes, depending on where you're at in life, even saying that word can be daunting.
Right.
And so I just say 5 little tasks.
Okay.
One is reading a spiritual book. One is, and that's kind of that spiritual side of my life.
Sure.
Stretching for 20 minutes. Sometimes that's my physical for the day, where I just ran 3 or 4 miles the day before. I got to loosen up a little bit. I'm stiff, just stretch. Or that day it can be eating an extra, serving or 2 of fruits and vegetables.
Right.
It doesn't have to be, this huge 2-hour gym thing ordeal. It can be just doing, or if I know I'm going to be shopping that day and grocery shopping, I'm going to park at the back of all the parking lots that day. That's my task for 15 physical that day.
Huh.
It's then, and then from there reading a good book. And then what I do for the emotional side of my life, I write 3 affirmations and I write 3 gratitudes every day.
Great.
3 affirmations or positive statements about who I am. Today's was I am patient, I am resilient, I am loving. And then I just write 3 gratitudes as well. Gratitude is such a powerful thing.
Right.
Powerful thing where they've studied that, Sean Acker in the Happiness Advantage, he said that, let me see if I can find it. It's powerful stuff. He said that people that scan the world for those things that are positive rather than negative, they are more energetic, they're more emotionally intelligent, forgiving, and less likely to be depressed, anxious, or lonely. Beyond that, they are more optimistic, they feel more socially connected, they enjoy better quality sleep, and even experience fewer headaches.
Wow.
Than control group, than people who aren't, exercising those gratitude muscles.
Sure.
And so that's one thing awesome. I do and then for social, it can be something like this. Like I'm coming out, I'm talking to you today. So I'm just going to check that off.
Yeah.
I talked with Todd today.
Yeah.
So yeah. And so it's just doing those little things and then filling my life with the other essentials, but it's just making sure I feed myself in each of those 5 areas.
Yeah. Very cool. I love the gratitude piece. I share with my clients, I think it's the most powerful stimulant on the planet.
Yep.
It's kind of like our tithing to the universe.
Right.
Is when we're grateful for what we've got, grateful, and actually not just, I'm grateful, but actually like what you're doing, you're actually spelling it out. This is what I'm grateful for today, and I love that you do that. When is this be something to be available on your website eventually? Or?
It will. I'm about a month or so out. I'm on prototype 10. I've been working on this thing for about 4 years.
Wow.
So slow and steady still. That's kind of my mantra.
Slow and steady.
Where I've just been building it. I've had some really great friends that have helped me with this. I'm just really excited to share it with everyone. It's a tool that, and this is part of my mission as well. I want to provide people with tools that are easy to use, that break down complex things,
right,
and help people take it in kind of bite-sized moments.
Love it.
Day by day. Happiness is not something that's around the corner. It's not something that's a month or 2 away. It's something you can build today.
I love that. Great advice, and I love that. If you could, we have a lot of listeners who are either struggling or they have a lot of people they know who are struggling,
right?
And maybe it's they're overweight or they have a stutter or they have a kid who's stuttering. What's some advice that you could share with our listeners around that and how to deal with that?
Yeah, great question. I would say is be patient with yourself, love yourself. Do not set goals that are unreasonable.
Okay.
We often do that.
You're right.
Let's just use the January 1st for example. We set so many unreasonable goals based on our past behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
Look at where you are. Look at where you truly are. And what is that next step or two that'll get me down that path of where I ultimately want to go?
Yeah.
We often think, wow, look at that man at the top of the mountain, or look at that top of that mountain. And it's like, wow, I want to be. But we forget that if we want to get there, we have to climb the mountain.
Yeah, we still have to climb the mountain.
We still have to climb the mountain.
Yeah.
And it's one of those where it's not enjoyable sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think there you can still find, even if it's not fun, learning to find fulfillment in those tough moments, I think has been a beneficial thing for me. Kind of leaning into the discomfort.
Yeah.
Running up a hill, it's kind of weird, but it's one thing I try and do is that when I'm running up, I try not run so fast that I can't smile anymore.
Right.
I always try and be able to I always try and run with a smile on my face where I have that ability, because if I feel, I'll sometimes run past people, I'll wave at them and be like, hi, and they just look like they're just the most unhappy person because they're running. And it's just like, they're so in this negative mindset. And I get it. Running doesn't feel good sometimes, but it's running for me is kind of like life, where we can be that way just in life, just sitting on our couch. Yeah. We can be so kind of so sucked into this dark place that we can't, we don't let any light creep in.
Sure.
And so it's one where I think just be patient with yourself, make reasonable goals, and know that failure is the pathway to success. That's how everyone gets there. We all fail. No one, if someone says they haven't failed, everyone's failed getting to that place.
Right.
And if you haven't failed in life, you haven't done anything in your life that has taken you out of your comfort zone.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So if you want to grow, if you want to improve, you have to fail.
Right.
That's the only way. Our muscles, in order to grow them, we have to break them down.
Right.
We have to rip them apart in a sense so that they build up.
Gotcha.
Stronger than before. And it's the same thing with anything in life.
Yeah, I love that. As you're saying, smiling as you're running up that hill is like enjoying the pain, being grateful for the pain. I just read an awesome book called You Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And he talks about how he got to the point where he trained himself to enjoy the pain and the suffering that he might be going through, because he knows on the other side of that is where the reward's going to be.
Exactly.
And it's kind of what you were saying. It's what went through my mind as you're saying, you run up the hill and you're smiling, waving at people, and they're looking at you like, what? How's this guy doing that? But what a great philosophy, not just with running, but in life in general.
Right.
Smiling and enjoying the journey as we go through something difficult even.
Pain, challenge, struggles, trials, those are some of the greatest teachers I've ever had in my life.
Right.
And looking back on all the things I've experienced, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Being stuck in the middle of nowhere in Iowa after semi hit my car, I'm in a junkyard waiting, because there literally was one tiny little motel and it was full. It was like Bethlehem. There was no room in the inn for me, and so it was one of those where looking back on it, that was a keystone moment. A keystone trial, and it's like I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
because look what it's done. You wouldn't be doing what you're doing today had you not been through all those trials.
Exactly.
Well, if you could give our listeners a challenge, what's a challenge you could give them that maybe help them break out of these things? I know you've given some advice, which it may all tie in, but what's a challenge you could give people who are listening right now?
I'm gonna give you the challenge of what I do every morning.
Okay.
Find one task in each of those areas today.
Love it.
One task. So whether it be meditate for 10 minutes, read your scriptures for 10 minutes, pray, whatever your faith is or whatever your spirituality is, that just find one little task in that area. Physically, if you haven't been to the gym in years, maybe do something as small as, I'm gonna eat a couple, apples today. Just something small, or parking the back of the parking lot. Walk a little further. Walk a little further than what you've done.
Right.
If on average you take this many steps, just go maybe 100 more. Kind of a thing. Learn something today, something that you didn't know before. Whether it be a TED Talk or listening to one other episode on this podcast, learn something you haven't learned before. Expand your mind, and then rather than leaving it open-ended for the emotional area, write 3 things you're grateful for today.
I love it.
And then socially, talk to someone you care about. I also make a game of it sometimes to go to Walmart. I find this is more true in cities than like smaller areas, but it's weird. I'll go to Walmart and be like, how many times, my game is how many times do I have to say hello before someone like says hello back? And it's interesting. It's just, it's sad in a way, but like, it's one of those where I try and talk to somebody you haven't talked to before.
Right.
Talk to the cashier.
Yeah. Right.
How's your day?
Love it.
Just one task in each of those areas.
Beautiful.
And I promise you'll have a happier day for doing it.
I love it. Great advice. Great challenge. If people wanted to reach out to you, Paul, and to, maybe ask you a question or to get to know you better, to learn more about what you're doing and your philosophies and things like that, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Probably the best way is probably through Instagram or Facebook. Okay. Instagram, you can direct message me, or you can comment on a post or something. I
It's
make
just
a
at
point.
Paul Moore.
It is
or-
at Driven Deep
Oh, okay.
on Instagram. So it's at Driven DRIVEN Deep DEEP, and then on
Okay.
Facebook it's drivendeep.paulmoore.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then, or you can go on my website. I have a place where you can contact me with email. But yeah, social media is probably the quickest way to get a hold of me.
Beautiful.
And so that's where I just share everything. And
Yeah.
I love
I love it.
helping
I love
people.
it. Well, there you go, listeners. Reach out to Paul if you have a question for him, or if you're struggling with losing weight, or even, I think there's a lot of people who stutter that struggle with it that we don't know about. So Paul would be a great person for you to reach out to, or if you know someone that needs to hear this, make sure that they get Paul's message. I want to thank you for being on.
Thanks for having me.
Great story.
Appreciate it.
You're inspiring. I really do admire the things that you push through and the trials that you push through. And I love how you don't play victim to it, and that you are using this to actually strengthen you and move forward and help others because of it. And it truly is remarkable.
I appreciate that. Thank you
Yeah.
for having me.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for being on.
I'm grateful for this and for the opportunity and all the things you've done in your life as well. It's definitely a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Well, there you go, listeners. Once again, an amazing story, another amazing person. And thanks again for listening and taking the time. Again, I need to thank Veracity Networks for their sponsorship and helping us make this possible. And thanks to you guys. Remember that I love you guys. I'm grateful for this opportunity. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.